reported $15 to $20 million is paid out to silence Jackson's 14-year-old accuser. The criminal investigation continues, but maybe Jackson's big buck muscle should have been used to silence another insider. Today, she speaks out.
The outspoken, often outrageous, independent, sometimes sad, sometimes shocking, definitely defiant, always unpredictable, undoubtedly interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Toya Jackson. Hi.
Hi.
Sounds like they're going to give you a fair shake today.
We'll wait and see, huh?
We'll wait and see.
Yes.
So why? Blood is thicker than water. Why? Why would you come public and say things that were so damning to your brother?
You know, Geraldo, this has been going on for several months now. And I've been asked repeatedly about the situation with Michael. And of course, he's my brother, and I love him a great deal, more than anything else. But when they ask me questions about him, I always say no comment, no comment, no comment, because I was torn. And when you're torn like that and you know what's really going on, you don't know what to say or what to do because you don't want to hurt him. However, at the same time, you don't want to see these victims hurt either. And you have to remember that I come from a family that's very dysfunctional, and I was sexually abused, mentally, physically, when I was a child.
By your father?
By my father, yes. And I know what it feels like to be a victim and to be abused. And it's a scar that's left on you for a lifetime. It's something that you cannot help and that you cannot control. And it's very damaging, especially to young children. And it happened to me when I was a little girl. And I don't want to see that happen to anyone else. And I'm not saying this to hurt Michael in any way, so I don't want the people to get the wrong impression. But when the press asked me a question eventually, I had to answer them. And I said I refuse to be a silent collaborator in his crimes. And that was my answer.
In his crimes, so inflammatory. Aside from the fact that it sounds like you think he is guilty, and we'll get to that, was there a specific catalyst, a specific reason for speaking out as you did in early December from Tel Aviv in Israel?
Yes, there was. They repeatedly asked me questions about him, which I avoided. I didn't want to answer them. Of course, you don't want to, but it comes to a point when they're just bombarding you with questions, so eventually you say, okay. And that's when I did it. And just before I had gone there, the night prior to that, I had seen the, I don't know if they're familiar with it, but the priest who had actually abused all these children when they were very young,
yes.
In Massachusetts. And now they're adults. They're grown human beings. They have no identity. They don't know who they are. They're all confused. Some of them are drug addicts. They're just totally confused. Their lives are totally destroyed. They don't know. And that's what happens when you're abused as a child. And now these people are grown men. Okay. They're nearly 40 or more.
So is it, let me stand by your side for a minute. Is this a case of Toya, the victim of child molestation, speaking out on behalf of victims of molestation everywhere?
Absolutely, because it's important to let them know that if you've been touched or hurt or anything, speak out and let someone know.
Okay. Now, you know that sounds like you believe Michael to be guilty of the allegations that he molested.
I would say that for anyone, even if Michael wasn't my brother, I would say that to anyone, because it's so important. They have no idea. I think people who have been abused would understand it more clearly than those who haven't been.
Okay,
you don't live a normal life. You can't function normally.
Okay. We accept that, and we understand and feel it very deeply. We've done more shows on victims' rights on this program than any other talk show, more programs about molestation and the perpetrators, etc. What evidence is there in your mind, Toya, to lead you to believe that Michael Jackson, your brother, is guilty of the allegations that he molested this 13-year-old youngster? Let me take it step by step. During the years that you lived with the family, did Michael bring young boys to the house more often than would seem normal to you?
Repeatedly, yes.
Okay, what
Definitely.
exactly did you see? Explain it, if you would.
Constantly, there were always young boys at the house. And when I say young boys, I don't mean groups of boys together. There was always one. And he would spend time with them. And when I say time, he would spend perhaps maybe a week, a month, or longer, until they reach a certain age. And when I say spend time with them, they would stay in his room. And you have to remember, to anybody out there, we're speaking about a guy who's 35 years old, and these little boys, well, this at a time, not in a group, but these little boys are sleeping in this room with him. And sometimes they don't leave the room, Geraldo, in 3 days. They stay in the room for 3 days. What could they possibly be doing in a room for 3 days? Sometimes a week. And when they did ask for food or anything, the cooks would bring the food to the door, and he would reach out and grab it, and he would close the door. And you begin to wonder and think, what's going on? I have seen so many kids come to the house, and they're just overwhelmed by what we had. They were overwhelmed by just the toy store, the candy store, the game machines, and all these different things, and just the rides and things of that sort. They were overwhelmed by these things, and they were taken in by these things. And he would watch them play, and he would single out certain ones, and he would have that look on his face, that glazed look. And I stopped and asked him one time, why are you looking at him that way? What is it? And he's just laughing. So I'm just looking. I'm looking at them play. I enjoy it. Which, in fact, I'm sure he does enjoy it sometimes, them playing. But when you single out one guy like that, and that's the guy that you see that stays over, and he's there for the next several months or whatever until he reaches a certain age or whatever, that's the guy that you see. And that kind of, you know, puzzles you. What's going on? What's happening here?
Describe that
and you
glazed
see this
look.
guy playing, and all of a sudden when you knock on Michael's bedroom door and you walk in the room, the child is entirely different. He's not the same little child.
Not the same innocent?
No, he's not the same little child anymore.
Was the glazed look a predatory look? Was it a look of, I am attracted to that one, I want that one?
I hate to sit here and say yes, but that's the impression I got. That's the impression I would always get, and that's the impression I didn't like, and that's what I didn't like seeing. And if you must remember, I wrote a book a couple of years ago because I wanted to put a stop to this, because I knew it would come to this, and I didn't want to see Michael hurt. I thought eventually perhaps he would stop this. But when you're raised like we were in a dysfunctional family, perhaps he couldn't stop it. He had nowhere to turn. He was confused.
So in your heart of hearts,
but this
you
boy
believe...
would totally change. You have to remember, he was just playful and just whatever. Then you come in the room and he's like this all of a sudden. Michael, what's wrong? What's wrong with you? Nothing. The same little boy that was jumping up and down on the bed and bouncing around and having fun and, oh, let's go to the candy store, let's do this and let's do that, was entirely different. You would see him sneaking there, looking around and running to the store after a while. That was part of the property when I say store, so they won't get the wrong impression.
Right, the private stock of candy and other
just
goodies.
a big store that had everything you ever wanted as far as candies for kids.
Okay, you say that at the age of 13 he then rejected the children?
That was basically the oldest.
And the youngest?
As far as 9 years old, 8 or 9 years old, from what I've seen at home.
Okay, from your own eyes, you are now saying, testifying in a way, that you saw your brother with 8 and 9-year-olds in his bedroom staying over night after night after night. You saw that?
Yes, and not coming out of the room. Yes.
Did you ever see Michael behave, other than the glazed look, the predatory look that you described, did you ever see him behave in an untoward or improper manner? Did he, for instance, fondle the children?
No, I've never seen him do that, no, no.
So you'd have to say you've never actually seen him molest a child?
I've never seen him do any of that, absolutely not.
Why then are you so convinced in your heart that he's guilty?
Because of what I've seen, because of what I know, because of what my mother has done, because of what she showed me, because of things that she said to me about Michael that I refused to believe at the time. I refused to believe my mother. My mother actually was screaming at me one day, and I ran to the room. I thought something was wrong, something had happened, and she was showing me this check. And I said, yes, so what about it? And she said, well, look at it. And the check, of course, was a 1 and lots of zeros behind it. And she says, Toya, this is $1 million. I said, so? She goes, but look who it's written to. And of course, at that particular time, it was written to the last name of the little boy that he was with all that time. But it was written to the father and not the little boy. It was in the father's name. And she called him a very bad name after that, Michael. She called him a very bad name. There was another check behind that.
Toya, if your allegations are true, you are truly one of the most heroic figures in recent time. If, however, the allegations are false, and time certainly will tell, then you're one of the most bizarre people of all time. Let me say this. I think that since you began speaking some months ago and the book was first written, you seem to me, although your conduct, your relationship, your husband are bizarre, more credible now, if anything, than you did then. But your brother is still innocent unless and until proven guilty.
That's right. You're absolutely right.
We hope for the truth to come out. I thank you, Jack, you too. Best wishes.
What do your mother think about that?
I really don't care what she thinks about it. I don't care. I see nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with exposing the breast.
So there is...
What do you call, and I'm not meaning to pick on anyone or single anyone out, but the pictures that Janet has taken exposing her pants unzipped.
Who?
Janet. I do have a sister named Janet.
I don't know anything about that.
You do know that,
If she was sitting in that chair, I'll put it to her.
And with a man with his hands over her breast.
If she was in that... If she was
and with the man, she's totally nude and the man has his hands over her breast.
But if she was in that chair, I'll put it to her.
A man has never touched me in any of my pictures.
That was the Playboy cover. Why did you pose nude?
Actually, it was my management. It's nothing that I would have done on my own.
Is that old Mr. Gordon again?
My old management, it was.
You don't even like to say his name, do you, right?
You know what? I'm in a good space in my life at the moment, and I want to keep it there. I'm very positive now, and I like that, and I want to stay that way, actually.
And do you have regrets over doing that?
The Playboy issue?
Yeah.
It's nothing that I would ever do again, in a sense. But it's okay because, after all, the breast was exposed.
May I ask this, Latoya?
Sure,
all right, you compare. You see, this is what I'm trying to get at. You Jackson girls and boys are in the most severe competition with each other, aren't you?
No, we don't compete.
You know what I find?
No,
you look remarkably like Michael.
You know what?
Why?
Michael looks remarkably like me.
Oh.
You're dressed like Michael today.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. This is in honor of him, and I love him. And we always play with brooches and things. It's so funny because growing up, I would say, Michael, put this here. This will look great. And I would take off my belt and take the buckle off and cut it and put it here and put it here. And then he just started wearing all the epaulets and everything. And
it's all your fault.
No, he wears it well. He wears it very well. Let me tell you why my book was written. My book was written basically to bring the awareness of abuse out to children who have been abused all of their life. And that's why I wrote my book. I did not write my book about my family. If I had written my book about my family, you would have heard the most disturbing things you had ever heard in your entire life.
Yeah, yours is not just a book that you wrote just for the hell of it, so you could.
No, my book is basically about a girl who lived with a dysfunctional family and who was abused, and everybody in that family was abused in many forms, in many ways. That's what it's about. I can't help it if my last name happened to be Jackson. But that's what it is. And I think that's a problem with some of the people. That's what they had, that problem with that Jackson bit. And here I come with the book. However, I decided to write a book because I couldn't deal with it. And I have to live a normal life too. And if something gets to you and starts eating to you, you can't deal, you just can't, you can't operate mentally. It was just terrible for me. It was very draining. Every day that's all I thought about. Why? He's my father, but why? I need answers to this. Please help me. And it leaves scars for a lifetime. They don't go away. They really don't.
But also, I sense that you didn't write this book so people would say, "Oh, poor Latoya."
Oh no, of course not. Because not just me. I mean, I'm in there very little actually. Of course, my father. Yes, he beat me once. My father only beat me once, and he beat me very, very badly. And then he threw me on the floor where I had cuts and everything all over my body. He beat me very badly. The book really is about the other members of the family. It's about all of us, of course, in our lives. I touch everybody, of course, but Michael was basically beaten the most. Constantly. Until basically the day he left home. Michael would go and accept awards on television, and you guys would watch him with the glove and everything, and he would get abused the minute he got home. And people don't know that. They have no idea. There are people that have been to our house who have seen it. They won't speak out because they're afraid they may lose their job, and I wish they would. And of course my siblings won't say anything.
They won't say yes or no. They won't say anything because they know the truth. But you have to be ready, too, and I think they're still in that denial stage at this point.
Will there ever be a day when there's a happy family reunion? Everybody gets together?
Well, contrary to what people may think, there is no friction between me and my brothers and sisters. It's the parents who won't speak.
In the beginning, when your dad was saying, go on stage, you didn't want to do it at all.
No, I didn't want any parts of it in the beginning. Nothing to do with show business.
Has he mellowed now, your dad?
Oh, yes, he has.
Because I remember the last time I was talking to you, you know, you had you'd published the book and everything, and it all gone, your family were really upset with you, and da-da-da-da. So how did that come about?
Well, actually, you know what it was? They didn't read it. They didn't read it, but if you read it, you'll realize that there's nothing really harsh in the book at all.
No.
So it's okay.
In your biography, you claim that your parents had abused you growing up.
Yes.
Has a lot of life turned better for you?
Oh, yes, absolutely. You know what it is? I've come to realize that as we get older, we grow and we learn a lot more. And I think that my father and my mother, they raise children the best way they know how.
You forgive them?
Are you kidding? Yes, of course.
They abuse you.
That's the most important thing. But you know, when parents do the things that they do, they raise us and they teach us everything they know or what they want us to know, and then it's up to us to learn the rest. And I've learned that people do things for a reason, as I told you earlier. And I think my father was an aggressive man because he wanted to instill discipline in my siblings, my brothers, and all of us, and that was his way of showing love.
The last time you were on this show, I'm going to quote you directly. I would love to see that happen, getting back with the family.
Yes.
I think that would be the absolute ideal. She also said that when they can come to me and apologize and say we're sorry, then I'll acknowledge it.
Yes.
Have they said they're sorry?
Yes. You know what? It's so important to forgive and move forward because that's negativity and it's toxic to the body and to the mind. So once you're over that, you feel pure and you're positive and you can move on with your life with positive things.
So you hold no bad feelings?
Absolutely not.
What do you think of the E! True Hollywood story that recently aired on you? Do you really think it portrays you as a person you really are?
I think that it's funny that you mentioned that because someone from that production is here. I think it portrays me in a very, very bad light, and I don't think that that story was fair to me whatsoever. And I think the reason it was done that way is because I wasn't there to respond, and I couldn't respond at that particular time. It's a very bad light of me, and that is not me. That is not the person that I am. And no, I don't like it.
Strip club promotions, 900 numbers, tell-alls. Toya had gimmicked herself out of mainstream showbiz and became an industry joke. In 1996, she took a long, hard look at herself.
I never got mad at her in a way. I'm sort of angry in a way, but I knew it wasn't her.
Now I'm pretty content and comfortable with my life. And if I have to address issues as they come up, then I will.
What I was wondering about is you mentioned that you had reconciled with your family, and that's wonderful, and that they have apologized for past abuse. What have you done to make up for any negativity that they might have felt towards you? You know, we heard a lot about stories being sold to the tabloid and some of the nasty period that passed. How have you made up to them?
That's
good question.
It is a good question, and that's all a bunch of lies, actually. That has never happened, actually. But I will say that my family, they understand me and they know me, and what you hear in the media and the press is not always the truth.
So you never, like, ratted on the family to the tabloids?
No, he mentioned selling stories. No, because this is management. I would never do that, and to be quite frank, I don't know how. I don't even know how to go about doing that. It would be my management. Remember, I was very secluded.
I mean, there's so many stories about the Jackson family, and there's so many stories about your father. And I mean, this sets it straight because it was never sexually abusive.
My father, he's a good person.
Yeah.
He's a wonderful person, and it's something that I don't really care to discuss. But I love him dearly.
Right.
I love him dearly with all.
And this is coming from you where you are today,
where I am
having
today.
lived through everything.
Where I am.
Also, in the past, made comments about your father, Joe, accusing him of molesting you and other forms of child abuse. And now you say, quote, "No other man, alive or dead, has done anything like what Joseph did for his family, and I thank him for that." So is this a contradiction?
No, it is not.
You stand up for the truth, and they say that you're not telling the truth.
You told the truth. You went on. If you said, "Hey, I did see some boys over at the house," why can't you say that?
Why can't I say that?
You said it. You said the right thing.
My mother gets her behind the television and say that it was not true.
You didn't say what? Of course it was true.
I know everybody saw it. Security saw it. Everybody else saw
He's
it.
still doing it today, so why wouldn't it be true?
I didn't say that I saw him.
Because
sleeping
people
with
are
him.
twisted.
I just said there were kids at the house. Thank you, Howard, for helping me on that, though,
All right.
because that's so wrong.
Yes.
I'm going to be honest because I am sick of my family. I love my family in a way, but then again, that's why I remove myself from that situation, because there are a lot of things
There's
that
nothing
my
wrong with being
family
homosexual.
believe in that I do not believe in, and I stand firmly against a lot of things they believe in.
Child abuse.
Sorry?
Child abuse?
Which is child abuse. I'm totally against it, and that's why I wrote the book. And she would say things to me all the time, and she would say, Michael is a so-and-so fag.
Right. Which is okay.
And I would never tell him that.
But she doesn't even know that that's true.
And I didn't even want
She just
her
would
to
say it.
Well, she would hate the fact that there were always little boys over, and she would say that so-and-so fag, and she would say it with such anger and hatred. But the problem is, now she gets on television so sweet and innocent and go, oh, I love my son, and I would never say anything like that. And the public sees it and say, how can LaToya go up there and lie? LaToya's not lying. LaToya's just, I'm not exposing him.
Right.
I just don't like the fact that my mother would say those things, and then she turn around and calls me a liar.
You're right. He's a very sweet and kind person. I defend Michael. I stand up for him so much. You guys have no idea. If he was here, believe it or not, or if he was listening in, he would be very proud because he know what I can say, and I have not spoken out.
LaToya then said, well, I don't know, but I don't think he did it. But who can say? Well, why bother saying anything? Why? Because you're just contradicting yourself, and you're giving a bit of leeway so people can think, well, this is his sister, and obviously it doesn't look like she thinks he's innocent at all. Then you should just say no comment, and that's it.
I have said that lots of times. I've said no comments lots of times. However, you have not lived in the same house. You don't know what's gone on. You don't know what goes on. I don't have the liberty to speak about this matter at this moment. It's very, very wrong.
I invite you to say he's innocent.
I want the best for Michael. You know what you're asking me? You're asking me something that I choose not to answer.
Okay.
And I have my reasons for it.
Okay.
And you guys should not say a word. The people that I hear sighing, you know why? You have not lived in the same house with me. You do not know what goes on in my house. You have not been there. If you were there and you know what goes on, then let me hear you say something. I think I'm being very, very kind. You don't know Michael from the man in the moon. How can
one
you
more
shake
time.
your head?
Talking to me?
I'm talking to you. Yes, I am.
I don't know, Michael. You sit here, look at you. You've got no respect for no one. You can't even respect your own family.
I must tell you that this is very difficult for me, that Michael is my brother. I love him a great deal, but I cannot and I will not be a silent collaborator of his crimes against small, innocent children. There were always little boys at the house, and they were not just a group of them, but it was always one at a time. Yes, and they would spend nights, and they would sleep in his room. Yes. Now you stop and you think for 1 second, and you tell me what 35-year-old man is going to take a little boy and stay with him for 30 days, and take another boy and stay with him for 5 days.
And I'll tell her to her face she's lying. And she knows it.
She lies all the time.
Mr. Jackson, Joe Jackson?
Yes, she lies all the time. This is how they make their living, by lying. And I think it's a shame for the press to go around and help them in their lies.
I would be more suspicious of a guy if his sister did come out than to just start attacking the sister. I would say, let's take a closer look at this if his sister is saying these things. But everybody else just jumps on the bandwagon and says LaToya's a nut.
And you must understand, this was a hard decision for me to make.
Of course it is.
It was tearing me to pieces inside. And then for the public to do this to me, to denounce me for saying something that's
Well,
true,
I'm not denouncing you. I'm not denouncing
you. No, you're not.
That's
you're
right.
Not at all. But, you know, that's what makes you so smart, simply because you understand and you know how painful and how
I say let's get to the truth.
Stop.
Let's get to the truth.
Of it.
Well, for
And let's
people who
stop lying.
think that this is a Johnny-come-lately story that you've just made up, this is not true. She has been grappling with this for a long time.
Yep.
Because she
And
had
you know
mentioned
what?
it to me before.
Yep, she had mentioned it to us. And
Let me tell you something, Howard and Robin. I'm going to tell you something. Like Corey said, Michael's nice and he gives to charity and all these things. Yes, he gives to charity and he's nice and he does all these things. But let me tell you something. Whenever there's a serial killer, what do you hear all the neighbors saying and everybody who knows him?
He was so nice.
Oh, he was the nicest guy in the world. He was so sweet, so kind.
Right.
He would never do a thing like that. We're so shocked.
let me tell you, if you were here in the studio right now talking to me, I would be cuddling you and comforting you, as a matter of fact, and holding you while you said these things to make you feel better.
Thank you, because you know why? It hurts so badly, and I feel like I have to fight and scream to get my point across. And I shouldn't have to. This is not my predicament. Michael put himself in this predicament.
You felt obligated to come forward, and I applaud you for that.
And no, I'm not doing it for money. I haven't received a penny for it, and I'm sick of my mother saying that, and the rest of the world is writing off what she's saying. And she's the one. She's afraid the money is going to stop. That's her problem.
Well, LaToya, I want to thank you for calling in. When are you coming back? When are you coming back from Israel?
And for all those people who believe that he did not do it, I'm just so sorry, because you know why? When it's your children and it's your child, you better think twice.
All right. Thanks, LaToya.
All right. Goodbye.
What's the matter? You all right?
Yeah, I'm fine. It's just that when you tell me about these award shows, and it was...
It's upsetting. Well, it is.
Yeah, this is not an easy position to take.
No, it's not easy to do it.
This wasn't the easy thing to do.
I don't know why more people aren't interested in coming out to find out the truth. Of course we should
They don't
find
care
out.
about innocent children. They don't care about these kids that are being harmed and hurt and scarred for life. They only care about the fact that he's a star and we're not going to let this legend die.
So then you've done the right thing. LaToya, you've done the right thing.
I'm helping children.
You did the right thing.
I will always stand by
Then
and
don't
help
worry.
them.
Then don't even give it a second thought. You did the right thing, and you have to do what you think is right. Okay?
Thank you for giving me that support. I appreciate that.
And he could manipulate you even into criticizing and attacking your brother.
It was very abusive, and it's things that should not be said, things that you keep to yourself. It's things that should not be said, things that you keep to yourself. Management, as I put it, kept pushing and pushing and pushing. No, I won't say anything. I won't say anything. You better make a comment. You better make a statement. There are people out there suffering. You have to say something. There are people out there suffering. You have to say something.
Were you bad rapped, or are you a different person?
No, I was bad rapped, and I have grown a great deal. I'm the same person. This is the person I was before.
So you're never going to let anyone control you again?
Are you kidding, Larry? Never.